Free as he set me free. He broke the bonds of prison for me. I'm glory bound, my Jesus to see. Singing glory. Pastor Angel Ortiz, would you open us in prayer, please?
Amen. If you have your Bibles, I want you to turn to two scriptures that we're going to use for our text today. I am going to talk about a subject this morning, and then next Sunday a different subject, and then the Sunday after that a different subject. Just things that are on my mind that I want to share with you that I think are important. Maybe that are a little bit outside the boundaries of what we might normally talk about or make into a Sunday school series, but nevertheless things that I think are relevant and that will be of help to you. So we're going to turn first of all to Ecclesiastes 3 and then Matthew 25. They are kind of related. Matthew 25 and Ecclesiastes 3, and I'm going to read Ecclesiastes first, so you can turn there first. These scriptures will also be on the board. This particular lesson involves things that I've been thinking about. Personally, if I live to the normal life expectancy of an American male, I have 12 years to live. If I live as long as my dad or Pastor Mitchell, I have 24 years to live. So while I may be able to wield great influence, God has more plans for my life and so forth, I do have to think about my mortality. And that's not a morbid subject, it's reality. This should not be considered morbid or negative, because death or passing away or becoming incapacitated is part of life, can be part of life, and will be part of every life. Young people, millennials, for example, probably anyone born after 1980 or 1981 thinks that this is all out of sight, out of mind, don't have to consider, don't have to think about it. But you'd be very unwise if you took that position. You'd be very unwise if you took that position. So what I want to talk about to you briefly this morning, and I don't want anybody talking in the back while I am teaching my Sunday school, please. What I want to talk about this morning in my Sunday school is living a well-ordered life here and now, but also planning for the inevitability if something should happen to you. And like I said, with me, this is a reality. The life expectancy of an American male is 78.54 years, and I'm counting those years. 12 years is what my life expectancy would be from this point forward. When I think about 12 years ago, it was 2009. It's not very long ago. I have very clear memories of things that happened in 2009, 2008, 2010. A lot was going on in my family, in the church, in the ministry, and it goes by so quick. So living a strategy for living a well-ordered life and success here and now, I think, is relative to that. People who plan, people who are organized financially and materially, people who think about things like their retirement and their future will have more success if you're the kind of person that hopes things are going to work out, makes it up as you go along. No real plan for the future. No idea of what the income is going to be if you can no longer work, or if you lose your job, or if you retire. Making it up as you go along is not a very good way to live in a lot of areas of life, and certainly with this one. if you passed away, would those closest to you be thrown into turmoil? Because you didn't plan. You didn't consider the possibility of the most extreme circumstance playing out. And because you didn't prepare your loved ones, your wife, your children, others who may be dependent on you are going to be thrown into turmoil. And that is not fair to them when you have opportunity to make plans otherwise. So it is a common problem today. People refuse to prepare. They refuse to order and organize their lives and their affairs. And then when they pass away, if they do prematurely, there's no plan in place. Part of my role, and Pastor Ernie, Pastor Richard, is that we deal with death. We deal with people passing away. Just this last week, we had 2 different homegoing services, and part of our job as pastors is dealing with people who are grieving, helping people to cope with death or with someone, a loved one who has passed away. It's a regular occurrence in our ministry, a church of this size and a church of this age. We deal with it regularly. People need help and guidance and comfort, and they need hope. But there are certain things that I can't do as a pastor when someone dies, and that is I can't make material provision if someone hasn't planned ahead. When my parents passed away, they died in the same year. They were married for 67 years. My father passed away in February of 2007. My mother in November of that year. It created a lot of work for me. I was the executor of my father's trust called the Stevens Family Trust. And my father was very well organized. But it still created a lot of work for me, and still does. I'm still dispensing various things to my nephews who were part of my dad's inheritance. So these things have to be thought about, and now is the time to do it. If you're a young couple or a middle-aged couple or an elderly person or a single mother, you have to and should think about these things instead of hoping and wishing that nothing goes wrong. And depending on who is passing away, the workload can vary. If there are lots of children, if there's a reasonably sized estate and possessions are to be distributed. Pastor Greg was telling me that when his father was in hospice, Pastor Mitchell, the nurses were commenting on the family because they were there. Greg, his sisters, and other family members were in and out. And what the nurses said was that when people are in hospice, there's a lot of fighting, a lot of tension, a lot of oppression in the room where the person is passing away. They're arguing over possessions already. Who's going to get what? What's going to happen to the house? Who's going to get this or that? And there's a lot of vitriol going on. When Pastor Mitchell passed away, there were family matters. He had material possessions. He had a home, assets, but there was also considerations concerning the fellowship and what he wanted to be in place after he passed away. Now, I am not a lawyer or a banker or an insurance agent or an accountant or a financial advisor. My job this morning is to make you think. I'm not representing an insurance company here today. I'm not going to open up my office for insurance sales, family planning, and financial planning. But what I want you to do out of this is think, and I want you to take some steps to organize your life, order your life beyond just hoping nothing bad happens, God will take care of me, and I don't really have to do anything. You should seek advice from experts or professionals on any of the issues that we're going to discuss. Lawyers, wills, insurance, all of that costs money. Some of it's minimal, but nevertheless, money is involved, and you need to think about this because it would be very wrong, and I think it's a demonstration of how much you love your wife, love your children, to make sure this area of your life is buttoned down. And that if you should pass away, everything is not left in chaos and turmoil because you didn't make any plans and you didn't think about things and how they should be ordered and organized after you pass away. So let's get Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1. And it says, "To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted." And then Matthew 25 says in verse 1, "Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise, 5 were foolish. 5 planned, 5 had no plans. Those who were foolish took their lamps, took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps." So let me talk to you first of all about the need for preparation. This is true in a lot of areas of your life, but we're talking here about your future, your retirement, and the inevitability that at some point you're going to pass away, and you don't get to plan that. You don't get to determine that yourself. So this is a very important biblical principle, the action that is taken to get ready in advance. We know that God is a God of preparation. Jesus said, "I go to prepare a place for you." So right now, heaven is being made ready for the influx of spiritual immigrants that are going to be entering suddenly by the millions on the day of the rapture. Jesus is preparing for that. It's not just make it up as you go along. And this is going to be the difference between success and failure in your life. That's why this is not just a subject about what's going to happen to your loved ones if you pass away. It's about organizing your life, organizing your finances, your material possessions, your future, buttoning it down. You have the opportunity to do those things. An ancient wedding. The day was not known, it was just known there was going to be one. You knew that there was going to be a wedding, but you didn't know when it was going to occur, and that's the difference between being wise and unwise. The foolish virgins didn't know when the wedding was and just assumed, well, we got plenty of time, when we get wind and the rumor mill starts, then we'll get ready then. Make it up as you go along. Don't make any plans. But the wise virgins got their oil ready, got their lamps ready. They were prepared for the day that the bridegroom would arrive and the wedding would proceed. They didn't know when it was going to occur, but they were ready for it to occur when it occurred. The word there means to be prudent or mindful of what is in one's best interests. The word foolish means to be heedless or dull or disinterested. So this is true of death. This is an inevitability. No one knows when, we just know it's going to occur. You don't die when you want to die. Some people die of natural causes as elderly persons. You can't plan on exactly when that is going to occur, at least not in most cases. So at my age, 66 years old, the mortality rate for men in America being 78, 12 years is how long average says I have to live. I don't like thinking about that. I'm a Christian, I'm born again, I'm going to heaven when I pass away, but I better be thinking about this, and I better have been thinking about it, and I have been. I pray that should Jesus tarry, I can do what I'm doing now when I'm 90. But we don't know. It's like the wedding. You don't know when it's going to occur, you just know that it is going to occur. Hebrews gives us a warning. It is appointed unto men once to die, but after this the judgment. And you know, there are a lot of Christians who may be ready for the judgment, but their loved ones are not ready for them to be ready for the judgment. They haven't made any plans for after they're gone, or if they should depart. And the fact is, you can be somewhat ready for the judgment seat of Christ, but lax with the practical matters that occur after your departure. So let's talk about some practical things. I'm not going to take any questions today, because they'll go in all sorts of directions and personal and what about this? I want the house, I want the car. And we're not going to go down that road. I'm trying to get you to think, and then we do have individuals in the church who have expertise in these areas. You can start with Pastor Ernie. Although he's not an expert concerning financial planning and retirement and so forth, he has some wisdom in that area, and he can point you in some right directions, and you can just ask questions around. So that's not my job here today, is to answer your personal situation and your personal questions. Again, my interests are twofold: get you to think and then get you to take some kind of action when it comes to this. So the first part of preparation has to do with finances. How would your spouse and children survive after you're gone? How would they? Would they immediately be thrown into hardship and turmoil? Or are you going to be wise enough to make provision so that financially they can not only have their needs met, but even flourish in that eventuality? These are practical things that you need to think about. Every wage earner needs to learn to save money. This is a discipline that is kind of old school. Most people don't save. The only savings are when an employer puts money into a 401k for your retirement. But apart from anything like that, you need to learn to save money. This is something completely lost on this generation. Every cent coming in has to be spent. If there's something left over after the bills are paid, it's down to the mall. Or Amazon. The money you earn is not just for today. It's for the future. And when it comes to savings, you need to have some goals. Save a month's worth of need first. Start there. If you make $1,500 a month, $3,000 a month, whatever it may be, save that much money, put it aside, and don't touch it. And then after, the rule of thumb really is for a young working man to save at least 1 year's income. And again, we're living in an age when men and women do not have this discipline. And it's foolishness. That was the 10 foolish virgins. They had access to oil. If they got oil, they'd put it in their lamps and burn it up. They didn't think about the future. The money that you earn is not just for today to satisfy your wants, buy your toys, and spend it frivolously. Money is serious business, and the earning of it is an incredible gift. I don't know, maybe with a nod you can tell me, are Roth IRAs still available to buy? Okay, a Roth IRA, I have one, is a great way to save money and to put money aside. It can earn interest. I think mine is in a mutual fund of some kind. I assign a certain part of my salary, and it goes automatically in out of my bank account every month. Sometimes I'm shocked when I look after I haven't seen it for a year or two. So finances is one issue. The other is insurance. providing protection against the unforeseen. We have automobile insurance in case we get in a car accident or our vehicle gets stolen or vandalized or something like that. When you purchase a home, you have to, if you have a mortgage, you have to buy insurance against fire, against theft. You can buy content insurance if things get stolen, water damage, and so forth. We buy insurance hoping that we don't have to spend it, but we spend money in anticipation that something in life could go wrong. And usually if something can go wrong, it does go wrong eventually. Most insurances, most every kind of insurance is relatively affordable. When someone dies and their income is going to stop, they're not going to be running around earning all this money. Their income is going to stop. This is what insurance is for. Your house, for example, I suggest your house, if you have a mortgage, it's your largest, you should have a decreasing term policy that in the eventuality of your death, your house gets paid off. And the value of the policy diminishes as your mortgage goes down, as you pay on it over the years. You don't want to saddle your family members or your heirs with mortgage payments. It's quite simple, and if you're younger than I am, it can be relatively inexpensive. Life insurance, everyone should have life insurance. If you're young, it's very, very inexpensive. And when you have life insurance, for example, you pay on a policy, let's say you're paying $30, $40, $20, $50 a month. If you pass away, they pay out somewhere in the neighborhood, depending on your age, your health, if you smoke, drink, overweight, and so forth, they calculate everything. You have to get a physical exam and so forth, but they can pay out $100,000, $300,000, $500,000 of insurance. I just sat down with my insurance agent and went over the policies that I have in place for that eventuality. And life insurance, of course, will get more expensive. If I was to buy a life insurance policy now, there are life insurance policies, for example, that I can buy. I'm 66 years old, that I can buy that will last me till I'm 100. By faith, I could buy one of those. The problem is they cost about $700 to $800 a month to pay out $300,000 if I die. So I have to calculate if I want to add that to my portfolio. So you have to think about insurances. Do you have insurance? Are you one of the foolish people who drives a car without insurance? Incredibly unwise if you do that. And I know there are a lot of people in El Paso that do that. You're assuming nothing can go wrong. What could possibly go wrong when I give the keys to my 15-year-old grandchild or son or daughter to run to the market? What could possibly go wrong? If they get in an accident, you're doomed. If they injure someone, it's a crime. I'll move on. Retirement is another matter you should think about. It's obvious what it is. It's money that you find some kind of a vehicle to put into that pays out when you retire. There are vehicles called 401ks. These are a lot of people who work have an amount of money that goes into a 401k. They're tied to the stock market, so that can be good or bad depending on the ups and downs of the stock market. That's a 401k. They're tied to the stock market, and you can get those. You can buy those even if you don't work for a company and they do it automatically for you. You can start a 401k. There are also IRAs. These are individual retirement accounts. They grow not as much as a 401k might, but they won't also lose as much as a 401k. They're more guaranteed. They grow at a slower pace. They're more guaranteed. There's also Social Security. Social Security is a government institution. You pay into it. You can opt out of it. You don't have to pay it. It's expensive. I've been paying into it for my entire ministry, my entire professional wage-earning life, and there's been times where I think to myself, man, I'd rather have that money in my pocket. It's $1,000 or $2,000 a year that I have to pay that's added to my income taxes, but when you get to be my age, then it starts being returned to you as income. And I know people that have, when they were 25, 26, they opted out of Social Security. They wanted that money in their pocket. And people say, well, I'd rather take that money and invest it myself, but they don't invest it, they go buy candy with it. At least you have something. If you're paying Social Security, my recommendation is that you pay into it. I know that a lot of voices are saying that it's not going to be here and so on and so forth, but it is here now, and I would recommend that you stay with it unless you're highly disciplined enough to take what you would have put into Social Security and put it somewhere else. Most people don't have that level of discipline. The other thing, something happens to me, my wife collects, and my children can collect. When my brother passed away, his children collected his Social Security. So let's talk about another subject. Again, I'm not taking questions. This is just food for thought and for your consideration. Death makes work for the living. There's consequences when somebody passes away. And there's so many different scenarios you can read from someone passing away, everything in turmoil and chaos and no provision made, no determination as to who gets what, and somebody's gone off into eternity and they're fine, hopefully, if they're in heaven, but there's chaos down here on earth. My dad was extremely well organized, but it's still a lot of work that I had to invest myself in. And as I said, to this day, we had I don't know if my wife will appreciate me saying this, but we had a homegoing service here a little while ago, and we utilized one of the local funeral homes. And so I made an appointment to speak with the guy about arranging should something happen to my wife and I. My dad did that when he was 58 years old. That's the kind of guy my dad was. He thought way ahead at 58. He was healthy, he was functioning in life, but he bought all the necessary things so that when he passed away, it was a matter of going to the funeral home. All the arrangements were taken care of, smooth sailing, no expenses whatsoever as far as his burial were concerned. So you have to think about things like location. Where is your stuff located? It's important that someone knows where everything is. When my son comes to visit us in a week, I'm going to go over this with him and show him where things are on my computer, where things are in my files at my office. I'm in the process of reorganizing myself at the age of 66, thinking about all these things that I'm teaching you about this morning. Business matters, finances, insurance policies, important papers. Do you have a file cabinet, a lockbox? Where are things located? In what files are they located on your computer? Are your bills and your debts well organized so that someone can make sure that it's all taken care of? If everything is on your computer, like a lot of things are these days, do people know your passwords? There have been incidences where somebody passes away, nobody knows the passwords. There's millions of dollars at stake, but nobody can get in and find where everything is, and this creates a huge hassle when you're trying to circumvent, bypass, or create a new password. Your computer needs to be well organized where relevant documents are stored. Do you have backups? You can't just put everything on a home computer on a hard drive. You have to have backups, and of course, a lot of times that's automatic with the iCloud. Everything I have is on an iCloud. I also have a secondary hard drive. There are other services, I think, like Carbonite and some other companies that you can send stuff to, or it automatically goes from your computer to them. You pay them a fee. So you have to organize and locate everything, have everything well organized. I can't throw away, I don't need them anymore. My dad left papers behind, file folders with, identifiable markers and everything. I still have, hundreds of pounds of papers in my office, and he was so, I'd be feeling like I'm sacrileging his memory if I throw this worthless stuff away, but I don't need it anymore. Maybe I should do that. Second feature here concerning the work for the living is your taxes. People don't know this, but after you die, this IRS is still on your case. You still have to file taxes. So if you haven't filed, let's say, for 5 years, and you can't sleep at night, your wife doesn't know anything about it, and then you die, she's going to be saddled with that. She'll have to pay all of your back taxes, all of your fines. They're all going to come out of the estate. If you don't pay your taxes, you think you're getting away with it, your family will have to after you're gone. And believe me, the IRS knows when you die. Yeah, they do. It's not right to leave those kind of burdens behind. If you did your taxes wrong or you did them illegally, they would have to pay for that and pay the penalties that are due. Thirdly, you need to physically write down your intentions. Make a will. This is a very easy process. You can even go online and get generic wills and have them notarized. How do you want circumstances to play out after you're gone? My dad started writing things out like this when he was in his 40s. You want to avoid conflict among survivors. You don't want sons and daughters and cousins and nephews and other people that were your friends who helped you, your cat or your dog. We've read about people who leave their entire estate to their cat or dog. We don't want all these people fighting over your stuff. My dad had very detailed, this goes to here, this goes to there. And it changed over time. Sometimes he got rid of the stuff that was supposed to go to there. I say, hey, Dad, what's up? I was supposed to get that. Well, I'm still alive. I can still do with it what I want. And again, Pastor Mitchell told me, Greg, that the nurses were amazed at how much peace there was in Pastor Mitchell's room when he was about to expire and pass away, because they see so much conflict erupting in that kind of atmosphere. And I know, you're going to think this is a weird thing for me to say, but you need to think about something like your funeral, your homegoing service. Where do you want the service to be done? We've had cases where there's conflict with that because the person who passed away is in our church, but they have a bunch of backslidden family members who hate Jesus, hate the church, hate the ministry, and they want the service to be somewhere else, let's just say that much, which would be a dead atmosphere. But if the person makes their wishes known, even unsaved backslidden people who hate the church have to comply. And we've had funerals, homegoing services here like that. It can be a little tense, but I don't mind preaching in a tense environment. I kind of enjoy it, actually. You're going to think I'm doubly weird for saying this. You need to think about who you want to raise your children. It happens. Who do you want to raise your children if both of you die? If you don't make that decision now and make it known and put it in writing, courts and other individuals that don't have your best interests in mind can make that decision for you. What if there's an unsaved, insane, drug-dealing family member who's next in line? And so you better choose wisely and don't let it be surprise. All of a sudden your 11 children show up at somebody's door. No, Mom and Dad said that you wanted us, all of us. Here we are. You discuss this beforehand and no surprises. So the final thing I'll comment on or the final two things. First of all, is just a few details about a will. Who do you want to get your money? If you're married, it would be your wife. She becomes the sole inheritor of everything. If she passes away, then it's distributed among children. If you don't have a will, that's generally how the court would do it. If you didn't make your intentions known, the court, a judge will decide, well, in the state of Texas, the wife gets everything, and then the children get the rest. But it's usually a little more complicated than just that. One thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that your wife's name is on everything. Your bank accounts, your insurance policies. If she's not on an account and she wants to claim ownership, it's going to be a big hassle. And probably it'll drag out for months, and a judge will have to decide at some point. And you give opportunity for people that have nefarious purposes and intentions to interfere. You need to put your inheritors' names on assets, if that's the way it's set up. IRAs, for example, retirement accounts that you have invested in, life insurance policies. If I pass away, my wife is the beneficiary. If we both go be with Jesus, then my children are the beneficiaries. Life is easier if all of this has been predetermined. If you have a trust, I'll talk about that in a little bit of detail in a minute. If you have a trust, make sure all of your assets go underneath the authority of that trust. For example, the trust, the Stevens family trust, owned my dad's property and assets and houses. I was appointed the executor. That gave me the authority to distribute everything according to my dad's wishes under the authority of that trust. You have to decide in advance how your assets are to be distributed. If your total assets, I think it's the law, if your total assets are under $500,000, then a will is sufficient with witnesses and notarized, and courts don't have to be involved. If your assets are under $500,000 or some figure, that could be an old number, I don't know. If your assets are over $500,000 and you have a will only, that has to go to probate court, where a judge will then process everything. An individual called a fiduciary will be assigned, and this can drag out for a year to 3 years. That fiduciary is paid out of the assets of the will. So he'll drag it on. Drag it out. They're getting paid to do this, and it's very common in a probate process for things to drag out for 1 to 3 years. So you've gone, your wife is left behind, your children, but they can't touch any assets because you had over $500,000 and it automatically goes into the court system. The way you avoid that is by establishing a trust. A trust is a legal arrangement that allows a trustee, myself, for my father, to hold assets on behalf of the beneficiaries. One of them, of course, was myself, and the other 3 were my nephews, my 2 nephews and niece, because my 2 older brothers had passed away. So you should establish a trust, regardless of the amount. And if you do that, it doesn't go to court. The assets can be immediately distributed. And that's the key. That would be wise for you to do that. And you can do that if your assets are only $10. You can set up the Stevens Family Trust. You can set up the Velasco Family Trust, the Ortiz Family Trust. If you're not married, you can, if you've bought a house, you can set up a trust and decide who you want your assets to go to. The trustee can settle the entire estate without going to court in a matter. My dad's was settled in a matter of weeks, but it can take a few months, but normally it's very quickly processed. And then, of course, you would have to decide. My father chose me to be the trustee. You have to choose who the trustee is going to be. Someone who is sane, not on drugs, not a bank robber, not in prison. That would be a good idea. Someone who has various mental faculties and assets and self-control and so forth. They can collect all the information and the details of the family trust. They can distribute it to the relevant people, and there's no argument. It is what it is. And then I would add one final thing, and that is under my category of stuff. I don't want my children to have to go through a lot of worthless, useless junk that I've accumulated over a lifetime. My wife and I have been married for 46, going on 47 years. We've accumulated stuff. We still have stuff from the day we got married until now. And I think we should spend some of the time in the future downsizing a little more. We've gone through a few phases of downsizing, and I know how challenging and difficult that is. But a lot of stuff that you accumulate doesn't have any value, and nobody is going to want it. It's just going to pass on and sit in somebody else's garage. I still have stuff from my dad. Like I said, I have this bucket of tools. I don't know what. It's there taking up space. There's saws, there's sledgehammers, there's these old pipe wrenches. My dad was a do-it-yourself type. He built an addition to our house when I was growing up just with hand tools, cut all the 2x4s by hand, pounded the nails by hand. That's how, and I still have those tools. And to me, they may have value, but I don't know if they will to anybody else. They'd probably be worth a few cents in a garage sale. So have mercy on your family. Clean out some stuff and do that in advance. Amen. So that's all I have. We're going to finish a little bit early. Like I said, I don't want to take questions because I fear that they're personal things that I really shouldn't be answering, and you have questions about your situation and your circumstance. Again, my twofold purpose with this lesson is to get you to think, number one, and to get you to take action. And if the husband is too lazy or irresponsible or foolish, then the wife needs to elbow him right now and say, you're going to get your act together. I'm waiting for the sound of the elbow. All right, we're finished. We have a few minutes before church. Thank you for hearing me out. The Lord bless you this morning.